Hey everyone, welcome to the James Morgan Jazz Conversation One-on-One Series 2026. It's a new mini series of conversations. Well, it started out as a mini series. Now it looks like it's going to run throughout the year. I've been getting a lot of artists contacting me that want to participate because the whole purpose of these conversations is to bring a lot of seasoned musicians from different aspects of the music business, from CEOs of radio stations to performing musicians, recording artists, engineers, sound engineers, and the list goes on. Just to show upcoming young musicians that are sitting at home, for the last year or a couple of years since COVID, maybe, just doing 20 riffs until they get the perfect riff and then putting it online. And that's what they're known for. They're not known for being in a band. They're really not known for anything, and they're making good money. Some of these guys are making thousands of dollars a month. There's no motivation for them to go out and drag their gear around and go play in a club. But there's an organic side of music that there's value in, which is playing with other musicians. That's where you find your voice with your instrument, improvising, all that, the camaraderie, touring, going to different countries, teaching. There's so much. So my guest today, I'm really happy to have him, David Taub. You'll see him on the split screen there. He's a guitar player based in San Diego. And a little about him, just those who don't know him, he started at a young age in the guitar, got into guitar and started taking lessons, played with different bands locally, and eventually started teaching. And he's actually I have to say, he's one of the pioneers of online teaching programs, to be honest with you. I don't even know if he knows that, but I did a lot of research, and he's actually one of the few that went out there when there was DVDs and, back in the day, before electricity. So he's got about, I think he has two YouTube stations, and he'll correct me later if not, but he's got about 185 plus, maybe 200 million views, 450,000 plus subscribers on the YouTube channels. And his website that he's known for is nextlevelguitar.com. And it's funny because I actually, like, maybe a few years ago, way before I even knew that he was a guitar player in San Diego or anything, I was looking at that because I would look at Guitar Pro and all these different avenues to learn music. And his current music project is called Black Sunday Band. They're actually doing really well in the charts. I think they went to number 2 this last week. They've been up there. They're not for the faint of heart. I'll tell you that. They're compared to Black Sabbath, Alice in Chains, Iron Maiden, which are great bands to be compared to. And the thing I like about David soloing, when he solos, he's not trying to do the speed demon thing that everyone does. And sometimes you can't even recognize who the player is because of that. He's got his own very melodic phrasing, kind of groove-oriented solos. To me, that's very refreshing because it actually adds more color to the rest of the music that's just grinding away. And all of a sudden you get this really beautiful landscape over it. And it's funny, he had a band project before called Mind Cell, and with 2 players that I actually played with years ago and did the fair circuit touring and stuff, was Dan Zapata on bass and John Capel on vocals. And John Capel was from the LA originally, and he was on a label and like decades ago. So they had a really good band. I really like the music, but I also like the music that David's involved with now. So without further ado, I want to thank you for coming and joining the series, David. How are you doing today?
Good, James. Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it. Good to be here. That was quite an introduction. Thank you for all your kind words. I appreciate that.
Well, it's just, you have to, I think there's a lot of musicians out there locally and worldwide that are great musicians. There was something on Facebook I saw today where a guy was saying because you have 5 million followers doesn't make you a good musician. There's guitar players out there that have 50 followers and they're amazing. And I think you're probably one of the most underrated guitar players in Southern California. To be honest with you, I'm surprised your phone isn't ringing off the hook to do more session work because you can read music, I'm sure. I mean, you have a natural ability that I think is, it's a great sound.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Means a lot.
So,
Yeah.
so where are you from originally, and in your family, was there music in your family? How were you exposed to music at a young age?
Yeah, I'm originally from the East Coast. That's where I was born and raised and graduated college at Trenton State in New
Oh,
Jersey. And then but I moved out. I've been out here a long time. I moved out here 20, 22, 23 years ago. So I consider myself a West Coaster.
yeah.
I couldn't take the East Coast climate anymore, basically. It's a whole nother thing, the brutal winters and summers. Anyway, so yeah, I've been out here a long time. And there's not a lot of musicians in my family other than the fact that I grew up around music because my parents really loved music. So my dad would always be playing records and
And
music would
what
be
kind of music did he play?
yeah, he played a mix of stuff, everything from like Santana and some more bluesy stuff to Frank Sinatra to Fifth Dimension and
Oh, yeah, yeah.
uh just I'm just trying to remember
Yeah, yeah.
back then.
Marilyn McCoo, the singer of Fifth
That's
Dimension.
right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
she's really good.
They were
Um
great. Yeah.
yeah, and then but things kind of changed for me later when I had an older sister. She brought home a stack of records one day because she was older than me, so she got a job, so she started making money. And then she brought home a stack of records that she bought and she played them. And she brought like it was interesting. She came home with like, and I had never heard of any of this before. I was much younger, but like Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, and the first Boston record. And she put
Oh,
these
yeah.
on, and it just was like I was like, what was that? Never heard anything like that before. And that kind of really put me in a different direction, even though I touched a guitar earlier than that, but hearing those sounds just was very different. So yeah, so I was around music a lot growing up, but there wasn't
So
really I
you
didn't really have anyone in the family played.
so just to step back one step. So you were playing guitar earlier, taking lessons. Was it classical or folk or what kind of music were you?
Yeah, I mean, I touched a guitar the first time and I believe it was like sixth grade. They had a music, like back then, most schools had music programs. I know they took a lot of that out of the schools with budget cuts, but back then the instruments, it was
Yeah, yeah. So you
woodwinds.
started playing in school, so like House of the Rising Sun and popular songs like
Yeah,
that, or
exactly. And like they actually had a good they had a guitar, but it wasn't like built into the program. They just said, "Oh, we have this acoustic guitar." Someone probably donated it, and then they just kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
rotated it around to the kids. So I kind of got my first taste of it and messed around, but I didn't get serious with it until years later. And then
And
when I
so
started, yeah.
I was going to say, so when you heard the music, Boston, Pink Floyd, and all that, was that like the spark that kind of you thought, hey, I want to do this?
Yeah, that maybe not wanted to do it yet. That came when the first time I heard Van Halen. Like
Uh,
when that first Van Halen record dropped, like that was a bombshell on the guitar and the musical community. And when I heard that, and then when I saw him, like I'll never forget, I don't remember exactly where it was, some TV interview or something, but I saw Van Halen being interviewed and it was early and it was Eddie and David Lee Roth and they were backstage and they were messing around and running around and joking and Eddie had his guitar and they were just having so much fun and that's when I was like I want to do that. I want to do that,
right.
and it was very visceral, and I remember that and and then his playing, just it was just took everything to another level entirely.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
especially Eddie, because I mean, he basically made his own guitars and he didn't
Right.
use distortion pedals and that he was just, it's a lot of it was feel and his spirit and
Yeah.
his personality. Yeah, he was definitely a landmark. I remember I actually saw him in the early 70s at a party. It was just a party near LA that I drove from Northern California, visit a friend, and they were a party band. They weren't, no one even knew who they were really yet. They were like playing in the garage.
Wow.
So I saw him back then when he wasn't, no, they didn't even record or anything yet.
Were they playing any Van Halen songs? Do you remember or
You know,
anything?
I can't remember, but I
Yeah.
remember it was amazing. It was amazing because I think David Lee Roth, I do remember he was wearing platform shoes that were like this tall, and he had like leotard pants, shiny pants on, and we were like, the show was what kind of grabbed you. But Eddie was pretty amazing, and I was like a few feet away from him, but I was, you know, trying to pick up chicks and stuff like that, so I
Right.
was paying attention, you know.
Who knew?
Yeah, who knew?
Yeah.
So you're you know you're playing music and so into your teens, are you starting to play electric guitar and you're getting together with other musicians? What happened there?
Yeah, I started to really take it a lot more seriously then. And then I started to put all kinds of time into it. And I was kind of a I was kind of a loner as a, a teen
Aren't we all?
adolescent. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I didn't really have tons of friends and I wasn't really I was kind of alone, and I kind of music kind of was like my thing. That's what kind of saved.
Sanctuary.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of saved me. And
Same need. You know, it's funny you say that. I tell people music saved me. I wouldn't be the person I am today because I was very introverted, you know, like I don't know if you were, I was. And music kind of gave, it was my personality could come out and people enjoyed it. So I had this thing I could do that I could control and then people liked it, you know?
right, right,
Yeah,
exactly.
for approval.
Yeah, I wasn't so much introverted, but I was more just just always mostly by myself, and that's fine, whatever. And even
Yeah,
the
yeah.
music I liked, like back then, like late in high school, I guess. Back then, like everybody was really was into like Bruce Springsteen and
Yeah.
Southside Johnny and that's cool and everything. But I was more into like the heavy stuff, like Iron Maiden and Rush and Judas Priest and not a lot of people like that stuff. So that
Yeah.
even made me more alone, which was fine. But I was always kind of gravitated toward the kind of heavier sound and the heavier bands. Not to diss the other stuff that everybody else was listening to, because that's fine. But it's all what you like. And
Yeah, because
that,
I think that people are drawn to music. This is what I have found. They're drawn to music that they expresses what they feel inside, and then they're drawn to it, and then they're able to express what they feel if they pursue that kind of music. I've always, a lot of musicians I talk to, that seems to be the feeling, you know. Everybody finds their own. It's just like a relationship. You have a relationship with this music, and it's you know, it brings you pleasure. You know, that whole thing. But there was another band, Iron Maiden. They were great, but there's another one I can't think of. Oh, Queensryche.
I love Queensryche.
Oh, amazing band.
Yeah, yeah,
Amazing.
they're one of my favorites. I love them. I've seen them many times. In fact, I that was one of the best concerts I saw when I think I was in high school,
Yeah.
and I saw them open for Metallica. Queensryche was on the Operation Mindcrime tour, and Metallica was on the And Justice for All tour. So I think I saw them with my brother in, I think it might have been in New York at Nassau Coliseum, maybe. I forget the venue. I have the ticket stub, but yeah, that was crazy because it was Queensryche on the Mindcrime tour and Metallica on And Justice for All. And so when that Mindcrime record came out, that was a big thing for me. I think that's probably one of the best concept records ever.
Yeah. It's
I
just a,
still go see them. I've seen them with
yeah.
Lattori, the new singer, and I saw and with Jeff Tate. And they're still bringing it 30 years later.
Yeah. Yeah. They're amazing. And a lot of, I think that they got drowned out a lot by the other big bands like Metallica and that, but they were always, to me, just their compositions were just impeccable.
Definitely, yeah.
I mean,
They
almost like watching a play, you know, like symphonic.
totally, yeah. That's a great
Yeah.
way to look at it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was when I really started coming into the '80s. There was so much music, and especially guitar music, that I
Yeah.
really really loved. And, a lot of people diss on that, 80s, hair metal and that and the glamour. But there was a lot of good stuff in there and there was a lot of talent. And the thing about that is there was and a lot of really good songs. And it was such a cool time. And it was a time when, and that will probably never happen again. You know
No.
what I mean? And it was just really interesting. And I used to go to the local clubs back then, and again the more hard rock and heavier clubs, and I would see these amazing guitar players.
No.
I would just be inspired and blown away, and that would just make me go home and practice more. I used to drive my mother crazy because it was like probably I missed out on a lot of things because I spent so much time practicing in my bedroom,
Of course.
and
That's the sacrifice we make.
yeah, exactly. I 5, 6, 7 hours
Yeah.
just practicing by myself and until I was playing in bands. And yeah, it just kind of overtook, most of my world, which is,
Yeah.
fine. I needed that, so yeah, yeah. But
Yeah. Well,
music, yeah. I'm
the
sorry.
Hairspray bands were great.
Yeah,
And the some of the best songs that to me the 80s had some of the best songs. I mean, I'm talking even like, later too, but we know all the bands that came out during that time. The one thing that was kind of interesting in the 80s is that's when electronic drums came on the scene. So that was kind of the drummers weren't getting hired as much because they had these drum machines that could play right on.
right on.
But the established bands, I mean, of course we had Kiss and I mean, the list goes on. I think that's probably some of the best songs wherever. White Snake. I mean, all the best songs came out of that. To me, out of that era. I think like the '70s, mid '70s to late '70s or early '80s was the fusion thing was huge. It was popular. McLaughlin and Aretha.
Right.
That's the music that I got turned on to music to 1974, and my brother brought over him to the Seventh Galaxy. Before that, I think I was listening to 10 Years After, Grand Funk Railroad, you know, but not what I wasn't listening to Led Zeppelin that much.
Right.
It didn't do anything for me. Again, it's finding the music that.
Yeah.
So you're back east. It's in the 80s. You're doing all this, getting inspired. You're playing in bands now. Were you playing clubs too?
Yeah, yeah. Then I started to, you start to, feel the fear and do it anyway, and get out there. And so I started auditioning for bands, and then, at first, you make it through the first couple cuts, and then you don't get it, and then eventually you get to the point as you're getting better that you start getting some gigs. So yeah, so I started playing in bands, and then finding that world and exploring that, and eventually found the right guys and started writing original music, and and took that to as far as we could go. And then eventually I kind of got to a point in life where it was a good time to split, because I always wanted to live in California. I visited California when I was 18. I think I came out with like 4 friends. I came out for like a month to Southern California,
Yeah.
San Diego, Newport Beach, and I just fell in love with it. And I'm like, man, someday, I'm like, what? They don't have winter here? What's with this weather?
Yeah.
It's sunny, and it just was like I never experienced that. And I fell in love with it. And I said, someday I'm just gonna move out here. And
Yeah.
then I just got to the point in my life where I said, you know what? I just don't want to wait anymore. And I didn't know anybody out here, nothing. And this was 2001, I think. And I just I sold my house back east. I put my dog in the truck, sold a lot of my stuff, put all my gear in the truck, and I drove 5 days, ended in Pacific Beach, and found a place. And then I picked up the Reader back then, when it was a little bit more beefier,
Yeah.
and there was a band looking for a guitar player, and I applied, and in 2 weeks of moving out here, I was in this band, and they were already
Nice.
playing out. So I was playing out within a few
Wow.
weeks of being out here.
Lucky.
Yeah. And just getting settled and learning, the way around Southern California. So
Yeah.
yeah. And then I never looked back. And that decision, although it was very difficult, because it's tough to leave a place where you know everybody and to move to a place where you know to kind of start. But that was probably, looking back, James, probably one of the best. I've ever made in my life.
Yeah. Well, taking risks is what you have to do, uh,
Right.
especially in music. Again, a lot of the artists that I've talked to that were back from like Michigan and back east that moved out here. They didn't know anybody, went to LA, became session musicians. And then Neil's a guitarist. He was on top of the smooth jazz charts for almost a year right after COVID or during COVID, and he has the most played song in radio ever. No one will ever catch up with him, called Pacific Coast Highway. And he moved here from Germany, and he didn't speak the language that well. And
Wow.
he became a session musician. He ended up working with George Benson. George Benson ended up playing one of his songs on his album that he liked, and then he had him help him with a song, George. So you take those risks. That's a risk coming here, not knowing anybody, living in his car, sleeping on couches, and eventually now he's, probably, worth a few $100,000, and he's got a great life. So taking risks is important. And that's what I think being an artist is about, because most people, and I've said this before, but artists are here to take risk and reflect to the people that have to work 9 to 5, go home, they have their family, their kids, they have that grind, so they can just put on some music, take them to another realm. And that's our gift, to be able to do that.
Right.
And we have to, we don't we're like teachers. We don't get the pay we deserve for doing it. I
Right.
mean, especially playing now live, musicians are basically making the same pay as they were in 1980s,
That's true.
but
It's
all other pay has gone up now. So you're out here, you're playing, you're in the scene. That's great, but not more importantly, but a really big aspect of your life is teaching. You
right.
have this website
Yeah.
uh, where you started doing it with the DVDs, and you had a guy who was filming, and you went through a whole long process. Tell everybody a little bit about how that started, what motivated you to get into it,
Yeah.
what kind of success you had with it, and where it is today.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like everybody I think dream as early on as a musician is, you want to, if to be a musician, you want to make enough money to be able to do that and play out live and just do that. And then you quickly realize, 99% of us is that you need another source of income, because you're not going to make enough money just playing out unless you're at a very, very, very high level. Anyway, so you got to have a lot of balls in the air. You got to have a lot of things going on, a lot of income streams. So I
Right.
started teaching, um, and I start, I'm teaching privately, and like everyone else, you build up your students. And I've always taken teaching very seriously too. Like I really put a lot of time into lesson planning. I really studied hard on how to be a good teacher and not just teach people songs, because that's no way to learn the guitar. You want to be able to teach them to play guitar so they can play any song, right?
Mm.
So I really refined my skills and honed my art of teaching. And then I built up to where I was teaching, again, this is early 2000s, 30, 40 students a week, hour lesson. And then, and I was busy all the time. I would even, when I first started, I was driving a couple days a week to people's houses to teach. I had a couple travel days. And then I built up enough at my home that I didn't have to travel. And then I was like, well, I have 30, 40 students. I want to reach more. How do I do that? How could I reach more? So I'm like, well, let me make a instructional DVD. So one of my students was a videographer, big time video. He was self-employed, but he did a lot of work with ESPN and National Geographic. So I started filming a DVD with him, and on different aspects of guitar. And this was early. This was 2004, maybe. Now this is standard. This is before high definition videos. This is old square screen.
Well,
This is
for those young people that don't even know what a dial phone is, DVDs were like a cassette tape that you'd put in to play, but they were larger, for those that don't know, and you put it in a machine and it would play on your television.
VC. You're talking about the video cassettes.
Yes.
DVD is more like a
Oh yeah,
CD.
the DVD.
Yeah,
Well, that came after.
right. You're talking about the old video. cassette
VCR.
VCR. Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah,
DVDs came in
came
after
after that.
VCR.
Right, right.
I was trying to do a chronological, and I got
Chronological, right.
lost. But
Yeah,
yeah, so DVDs, then the DVDs came in to put you could put in, and then eventually it evolved to where you could download online.
right. What happened was a lot of the computer manufacturers, they stopped putting optimal drives DVD in computers, and that helped to kill the whole DVD thing. And now everything went to subscription, and now DVDs are pretty much dead. That's kind of the evolution of it. But yeah, so I wanted to make a DVD, and then around that same time, I had another student of mine who was an entrepreneur, and he's like, "Hey, do you mind if I videotape one of our lessons and put it online?" And when I say online, remember this is early. This is 2004. So I'm like, sure. So I didn't think anything of it. He filmed it. I did some stuff. He put it online, and then like a month later, he gets back. He's like, "Hey, you know that video I put online has over thousands of views." I'm like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah." So then he's like, "We might have something here." And then so him and I got to talking about filming a lots of lesson and kind of building an online curriculum, and
Oh, wow.
also putting videos online. Now this was so we started doing that in 2005, which is this is before YouTube even. So
That's what I'm
back.
saying. You're kind of like a pioneer in
Well,
this.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah, there was very few people back then, only a handful of teachers putting stuff online back then. And back then I was recording videos, putting them on like Yahoo Video, which was big back then. It's no more. And Google Video, which is no more. They had a platform. Meta Cafe was a platform back then. Those were the big ones. And then YouTube came in. So I started putting stuff on YouTube, and that's when it got really interesting because back then there was maybe only 3 or 4 of us teaching guitar or teaching anything that wasn't video or online learning. Again, this was still
Yeah.
standard definition, and then it just started taking off,
Yeah.
and then I got really popular from teaching
I think you
kind of
were always rated in the top 10 or something in
yeah,
instructional.
yeah. I was I was putting out lots of content. So I was doing this video, and the videoing was I was videoing all the time, hours every day, and on top of that, I was teaching full time and then playing in bands
Right.
at night. So
Nice. Living the
yeah,
dream.
yeah, exactly, and grinding away, and then so built that online curriculum where all of a sudden, when I felt I had enough lessons, like 200-300, put on Next Level Guitar, and then started a membership website for people who and then I started making more DVDs because back then a lot of people didn't have, remember when people didn't have like a good internet connection,
Yeah.
so they would prefer DVDs, so I would sell those, which are great because with back then with DVDs, when you would make the DVD and produce them and then just keep selling them, so it wasn't an expensive undertaking, and you're just reselling the information. So I was able to do pretty well, selling DVDs, selling the membership to the online lessons, and keep
So,
building that.
so did you built a business? Were you an LLC, an actual business?
Right, corporated, right? S
Yeah.
corp, made it
Oh,
an S corp.
nice.
Yeah, and then it just kept growing from there. And then as YouTube evolved, things, and then after, and then HD video came in like 2009, I think. So then
Mhm.
everything changed, and you went to high definition video. Things
Right.
got a lot more slick. And I mean, but in the beginning, I didn't know. I was like, we were setting up lamps with like foil around it, and
Yeah.
like nobody knew how to do it. This was a whole new thing.
Yeah.
So it was interesting, the evolution of it. And but then as it went on, and people started seeing this model works, then
Mhm.
everybody started to do it.
Yeah.
And that's just what happens. So everyone would take that model and replicate it in whatever they were
Yeah.
learning, whether it be music or teaching someone how to fix a sink or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And then eventually, then as YouTube grew and grew and grew, in came the partners program, and things changed. And now the space is saturated. It's a very, very crowded space, and it's a lot more difficult to make that kind of income, because before there was a handful of us doing it, so it was a big slice of the pie. Now the pie is sliced up a gazillion different ways, and now everything has changed to where a lot of a lot of companies and they give a lot away for free, which is
Mm,
fine. I've always given away some things for free, but
yeah,
I don't, you can't really devalue music or people's time and effort. That has a value to it. But so a lot of times now people don't want to pay for certain things for lessons because so much is free and it's so much out there because
yeah,
things have just exploded. So I still have the YouTube channels. I have two YouTube channels today. One which I teach songs, which is Epic Guitar Instruction, which is pretty popular. And then I have a channel that I started years before that, which is Pure Instruction, which is Rock on Good People. So I
yeah.
have the two YouTube channels. So I still produce content. I'm still posting videos there. I have a TikTok channel, which I started a few years ago. And I don't make DVDs anymore, but I sell digital. I converted everything to digital.
Mhm.
So I still sell my products, my courses digitally, and whatnot. And then I also license. That's a big thing now. You can license your courses to different platforms that have a much bigger,
Uh-huh.
uh,
Yeah, audience. Yeah,
yeah, exactly, much bigger platform.
membership. Yeah,
Yeah, like Ultimate Guitar. I have a bunch of my courses there because
yeah.
they have a huge amount of
Oh,
eyeballs
yeah,
on their
yeah.
stuff.
They're the god of, yeah,
Right. Yeah. And then I also have like some of my courses on Udemy because that's the biggest platform there. So again, it's like I have a lot of balls in the air. You have an income
yeah.
stream coming in from this platform, from that platform, from the licensing, from the website, from your sales, from private
Mhm.
lessons. And this is the modern musician today. You have
Yeah.
to
For
have
now.
for now, exactly. And that can change. Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Uh, you have to have a lot of balls in the air.
yeah.
A friend of mine once said, uh, a really good guitar player said, in the business, he said, if you're not juggling, you're struggling, you
Yeah.
know? So
Right.
you got to have a lot of balls in the air. And I do some, like I'll get a call to do like some studio work. I'll get a call to do like, hey, I need a guitar track for this piece of music. You know how it works today. I'll send you the track,
Sure.
and then I'll put guitar over it or bass over it, whatever they need, and pass the file back and forth. So I do get some call for that. Not as much as I used to because now everybody could do it because the home recording has gotten the
Yeah.
technology is so good now.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, a lot of people don't have to even take lessons now because of Suno, and they can write songs now with AI and all of
Right.
that. But a lot of musicians that are a brand name, like say, Al Di Meola or whoever, Frank Gambale, they have their own website. They can put lessons on there. Dean Brown, who produced my Groove and Smooth album, who played with McLaughlin, Billy Cobham and others. He was doing Zoom, and here's a musician that was one of the top in the '80s. Him and Mike Stern, and they were doing all the play. He over 200 albums. He was Roberta Flack's music director and all that. But living in San Diego, again, like you said, he would do producing. He taught up at the what used to be the Guitar Institute in LA. So he'd drive up 2 days a week, and then he would do Zoom lessons from
Yeah.
his apartment. And that's that's what you have to do, to do that. Now, if you're a drummer, he's a guitar player. If you're a drummer, it's a little different, or a bassist, because you can be a side musician like Nathan Brown, my primary bass player on my last four albums. He's tours with Coco Montoya a lot, does a lot of he's playing 4 or 5 days a week with recording and different bands
Right.
because they're side musicians. Now, me, you read music, correct?
Yeah. I don't get a call for,
But
you
you
know,
read
yeah.
charts. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, I play by ear. All my music, everything I write, I just play by ear. So these guys too can read. So when somebody wants something, they don't have a day or 3 days to get ready for it. They go in, they don't even know what kind of music it's going to be. They hand you charts, they
Right.
do it. So they get that kind of work. And the other thing though is that because they play so much, they're really good because for instance, the guys that I play with and record with, I don't do any overdubs. Everything's recorded live in a
Oh,
regular
awesome.
studio, because I think there's the magic in that. And
Yeah.
so like my next single that's coming out, my last two were all recorded live. I go right from my chords into my solo. I don't go over and dub and all that. And the bassist, everybody, and they're hearing the song for the first time. I send them a mock-up before, but when we get in the studio, we do two, maybe three takes, and sometimes we end up using the first take.
Yeah, for sure. That's
So
awesome.
because the magic is there, and there is home studios, and you mentioned that, and the reason I brought this up is I just finally got a home studio. It's the latest in technology. It's like a giant iPhone. It's called
Yeah,
Rob.
I saw your post on that, and I'm not familiar with that piece of gear. I'm
Yeah,
gonna check it out. Yeah.
it's the latest in technology. It's everything that everyone, it's like the next evolvement when we go from the internet to whatever we're going to go to after that. That's what this is as far as studios, and it's very compact. And the Kickstart is how they funded it. It's the largest Kickstart product ever, and it's
Wow.
pre-sale. So I actually contributed to the Kickstart, and then I got mine months later because
Right.
they make them.
Yeah.
And basically, you don't need a computer, you don't need wires and all this stuff. Everything is on a touch screen. You have all your amp models. You have uh, for a subscription, I think it's $40 a year. You have software in there that you can get any song anywhere or your own, and you break all the stems down and take stems out, put your guitar in or bass or whatever. So it's one-stop shopping, and it also has guitar lessons on it. It's got every guitar, all the popular guitar settings, presets. I think over 300 of them.
Great.
So it's a great thing. And so I decided um, I'm still going to record live too, but I have projects coming up that maybe I can make my own mock-ups with
Right.
drums, bass, and
Yeah.
instead of having a producer do it, having to pay a producer to do it.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's the latest. Definitely check it out. So you're doing the recording, you're setting up all your lessons and things like that. And now you're at the point, and I know the landscape has changed a lot, and it's going to continue to change. But you're also playing in a band, this Black Sunday band,
Yeah.
and you guys are coming out with an album this year. You got a great singer. That singer's amazing.
Yeah.
Uh,
He's really good.
yeah,
Will.
you guys are really tight, really coming together. So, um, just to get back a little bit to the music part, away from the
Yeah.
teaching part. So, the style of genre that you're into. Was there a guitar player that inspired you a certain way, or was there a band and you just kind of not modeled yourself, but it really kick-started you into this genre?
Yeah. I think as guitar players or as musicians, we're all kind of like amalgamates of our influences. We take a little bit of this person, a little bit of them, a little bit of them. And then my thing is, you take all that in and then add your own twist and a heavy dose of and like you said earlier about, and you find your own voice. And that's what I do with my guitar lessons. I try to help students to find their own voice on the instrument. But early on, like my influences were guys like John Sykes from Whitesnake and Thin Lizzy and Tigers of Pantang. Gary Moore, I'm a big Gary Moore fan. On the bluesy end, Stevie Ray Vaughan. But on the rock end, Eddie Van Halen. And then, on the prog or more like Joe Satriani. I'm a huge, like that was a big, when his instrumental record came out, that was a big bombshell for me.
Yeah.
I'll
Into
never forget that because actually that that record I was actually that might have been when I first came or one of my early trips to LA. I'm driving around and then Always With You, Always With Me, his slow song came on the radio. And I'm like, who is that? I'm like, I've never heard I've never heard like he had such his own sound and it was
yeah.
instrumental. I'm like, I gotta find out who this is. That's when this album first came out. And then I found, oh, this is it. And then you start digging back into their catalog. And then I'm a big progressive rock and hard rock fan. So like Dream Theater was a big band for me because I was a
How
big
about
Rush.
Perfect Circle or Pantera? Any of those?
Yeah, I liked I like Pantera, Perfect Circle. I'm more of a Tool fan than
Oh,
Perfect Circle.
yeah.
And but yeah, I like all the heavy prog stuff. And you mentioned my band Mind Cell. That was my previous original band, and we wrote some great stuff, and we kind of took it as far as it could go. And then, kind of wound down. That's tough. That's a very hard market to break into, the prog market, because it's very, very niche. So I said, my new band, I'm like, I'm just going to cast a very wide net. So this is more straight, four on the floor, 4/4, just hard rock and rock, but with,
And to be honest with you, I enjoy listening to. I liked Mind Cell,
yeah,
but it almost had like I would say a limited sound. It had a sound, and then that was it. But
yeah,
with this band, it's almost like every song is different,
right.
and you could be a rocker, or you could be a progressive rock person, or you could be a blues, like you said, and it works.
Yeah, yeah, we're
Yeah.
kind of creating this, and it's a wider net, big choruses to latch on to, and it's much more marketable and a really wide net. So I'm really excited about it. I play in other bands too, and I get a lot of hired guns. I do a lot of casino work and stuff
Uh,
like that, and that stuff is great, and that's bread and butter gigs. But this original band, I'm really excited about. The record's done. I produced it, engineered it all myself, so I'm really
wow.
stoked. And we're releasing singles, much like you are, and we're trying to get traction. Have a great,
So you're doing the waterfall method, they
yeah,
call it. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, man, it's so hard today. The hardest thing, in my opinion, for original music is getting your stuff heard by a big audience, because there's 120,000 songs being uploaded every day to like Spotify. So if you put
Yeah.
out, you put out something, it's just an eyedropper that of water in an ocean that falls to the bottom. So that's the hardest thing, getting a big audience, and you got to grind and build a
Well,
following. And
the thing too is you're on the charts, and that brings to the point. Again, maybe 20 years ago, 9,000 songs came out maybe a month. Now 60,000 songs are released every day, and
right.
over 60 million songs a year don't even get on Spotify, don't even get one play. So to even go from
Yeah.
getting plays on Spotify or any streaming to being on a chart, that's almost like impossible, really, if you think about it.
Yeah,
So
it's tough out there.
you guys are doing good on the chart.
Yeah, we're trying, and
What's the name of it? Bandwagon?
well, there's a lot of these indie radios and college radios stations. They have their own charts, and
Uh-huh.
we're charting on a bunch of them. Like, we're trying to, like, and again, we're doing this all ourselves, so it's a tremendous amount. We don't have a publicist. We're not
Well,
working with a label right now, because there's
well, labels just marketing. They're just marketers now.
right now
In
it's all
fact,
label services. That's
yeah, well, labels aren't what they used to be. Labels again, the big labels, and that's why I started a record label, J&J Records, because now is the time to start a record label for independent artists, because it's marketing, because the large ones are mostly into a catalog acquisition. They're getting rid of a lot, hundreds of thousands of employees, tens of thousands. They have small groups of people that are doing hands-on talent acquisition of real musicians. So what all a music record label does now is they have like mine. I have connections with all worldwide radio stations, all the reporting stations, because not all radio stations report to the charts like um, all the big charts that we know about. So what all a record company does now is they get your music in front of all these people that you don't know how the workings to do it. But I always encourage musicians, find out how to do it, learn how to do it, because uh, and there's no of investment anymore on recording. There's no at all. Everything you put out, the chances are you'll never see that money again. But it's not about that. It's about wanting to
right.
get your music out there.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. There's
you're doing
no.
it the right way, is what I'm saying.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
trying. We're trying, and it's tough now, because, like you said, it's the whole, not just, everything has changed for the way people experience music, and people don't buy music anymore, and that really hurts the artists and everybody down the chain. You know, people don't, they don't buy, they just rent it, so there's no back end anymore, and that's why everything has changed
Yeah.
industry
Well,
wide.
it's there. It's just not there in big numbers. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
when I first started, I came out of part of some of the services I offer. I tell them, and I have a couple of people I'm picking up now that be coming on my label, is that I came out of obscurity 5 years ago. Nobody knew who I was, but because I know how to market, I'm not the greatest guitar player, composer. I always tell people that, but you don't have to be. If you know how to market and use all the tools out there, get yourself out there, you can get an income. So when I first started from Sound Exchange and Credit Exchange, all the different places you can get royalties from, I was getting maybe $10, $12 checks. Now I actually have an income from them in those short 5 years because I've recorded so much music and put so much music out there. And with the IRC numbers, you know how it works. And you get
Yeah.
everything out there and you get your little uh, pennies coming in. So I always encourage artists, put as much music out there as you can. But I do sell CDs. My CDs are in Target selling. They're in Walmart through, there's new uh, boutique distributors coming out now. And I just turned um, Gary Husband on to them to start selling his music. They're called Spiny Media out of Oregon. And you send them your CDs, and it's like, and I'll send you a link.
Yeah, send me that link. That's interesting.
And it's only they charge you like $7, $9 a month, or you pay like $100 a year flat. You keep all the money. Their shipping is way cheaper. If you're on Bandcamp, and I sell a lot of CDs, is my point I'm getting to. I sell a lot of CDs, and mostly from Europe. And these people are paying $60. That's including the shipping to get it there for a $5 CD with 5 songs, but they want it because they like having CDs. So what's happening is now I think things are switching. Vinyl's coming back,
Yeah.
CDs are coming back. So now these companies, their shipping is like $15 to Europe, whereas for me to ship it through Bandcamp to go down to UPS, it's like $45. So, and you don't have to get in your car and drive down there with your wrap them and all that. They do everything, all the shipping, customer work, and plus now they're getting larger audience. Artists are coming to them, so now they're getting more credibility. So now they're able to put the music, like I said, Target, Walmart, eBay, and they post everything. They put your music on there. They sell it for you. You keep 100% of your music. All you're paying is the yearly fee.
And you're selling a lot of CDs through them?
Yeah. I
That's
sent,
awesome.
I started small. I said, I'll send 25 of each because I start with 100.
Right.
And all of a sudden, a week later, I go, oh, it's only been a week and I'm already selling them. So uh, definitely check them out.
Yeah,
They're a good company. So I think CDs and merchandise, obviously, as you know, is a way to make money,
totally.
but no one's going to buy a James Morgan Jazz T-shirt, but they will buy the CD. So I think CDs and vinyl is going to come back. I think part of the music industry is going to come back because what is happening is that there are no bands anymore. There are no bands that are recording music. So their catalog is becoming repetitious, and except for a single here and there. But not everybody's into all that kind of music. So what's happening out of default is that bands are going to start recording again. They're going to be coming back, and bands are starting up again. And they're going to have their own lane of selling their music separate from the streaming. So I think it's just this transition over the last 10 years that has taken it away from us. But now, because there's no more music coming in, fresh music. Yeah, there's a lot of singles coming out and things like that, but it's not working for them. And a lot of musicians are leaving Spotify too because of they're investing in all this military stuff and all that. So there's just a lot of stuff now. The bass player with Kiss just recently went before Congress, and he was sitting with the top exec. They're making $40 billion a year, and he said, "Just give us a billion. Just give the musicians in the world just a billion. We'll take that.
Right.
Don't be
Yeah.
so greedy."
Right.
And they're making, again, like you said, Napster was the start of it. They're taking money off the backs of us. But again, like AI and Suno and all these other things, they're all tools that can be used. You have to adapt to the new environment. I'm 68. A lot of guys my age don't want to adapt. They just want to
Right.
bitch about it. Say,
Right.
not me. I see everything as an opportunity. And that's what you're doing when you say you're taking Black Sunday or this band that you have, and you're using all the tools that you can to get it out, to get your music out there. And you're doing it for the love of it because you're not going to make a lot of money.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what a true artist is. Now, what's the message that you guys want people to feel or hear when they listen to your music?
Yeah, I try it when I write. I wrote all the songs, and Will, the singer, my vocalist, Will Wolf, he wrote all the lyrics, but I write all the music. And I always try to write music that people can sink their teeth into. Because let's face it, like if you look what's out there right now, what's charting, I mean, on the major charts, it's a lot of empty musical calories. It's not about the musicianship anymore. And it's not about the songwriting, it's about what's popular, right? Because a lot of these big companies, they don't sign artists, they sign audiences if you have a big audience.
Yeah.
And so the internet is the star maker, and the internet really doesn't know shit. So I always try to really take it from a songwriting standpoint. And with this band, I feel I'm writing some of the best songs I've ever written. And big hooks, big choruses. I just want people to feel some type of, connection to it, something that they could relate to, some
Sink
kind
their
of
teeth
emotional,
into.
sink their teeth into, exact, and music that takes them on a little bit of a journey. And so far, the feedback we've been getting has been exactly that. And we have we released out of I have like 4 different songs that are charting on different various radio charts, which is really good.
You've only released 4 so
No, I
far.
think we released 5, and we're
Okay,
releasing another one.
and then how many are going to be on the album total?
10.
Okay, so just for those that don't know, real quick,
Yeah.
and then do continue. The
Yeah.
waterfall method is you release singles every 6 weeks.
Right.
Those numbers that you get accumulated plays online, when you come out with the album, with all those songs in the album, automatically go to the album. So your album gets that extra hit of all those already established
Right.
plays. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's blacksundayband.com if you want to check
yeah.
out the
And I'll
website.
be putting all these links underneath the
Cool.
video.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
and you already mentioned my guitar stuff,
all
nextlevelguitar.com.
that'll be under
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
And I'm very reachable too. You put my email or whatever. So yeah, so we're in the stage now where we have, a lot of different balls in the air, getting the music out there, and uh it's just creating that emotional connection. We're booking live shows now because this is kind of a new project. We haven't been together very long.
Well,
um
getting back to your composer, because you're a composer, an educator,
yeah.
performer, and all that, and now and an engineer and everything and all of that. What I was going to say, because you were talking about something, I wanted to touch on it. So you're putting all the music together. What inspired you to write the songs that you've written? Because you said you think they're some of the best music you've written. So something that inspired you to do that. What do you think that
Yeah,
came from?
I guess going back to how this band started was the singer who's from San Diego, Encinitas. His name is Will Wolf, ridiculously talented singer.
Yeah.
The guy, he has such an amazing, and his voice is different too, which is really what drew me to him. Like I've known him a long time, and I've wanted to play in a band with him for a very long time, but I was always in projects. He was always in projects. I would pass by him in the hallways. Hey, how you doing, Will? What's going on? Hi. We were always like, hi, how are you? But I always wanted to play in a band with him. And then the Mind Cell, my previous original band, was winding down and kind of came to its fruition. And I was thinking about starting something up again. And out of the blue, he called me and he's
Okay.
like, he goes, David, I always really loved your guitar playing. I always wanted to write and play with you. My band I'm in now, it's at the end. It's not going well. I want to start something. You want to get together? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, let's do this. And I just had this idea. I said, let's just write completely new songs. Nothing that I had in the tank,
Mhm.
nothing, just brand new stuff. We'll sit down and we'll pass some files back. Let's write some demos and let's see how it goes. So I just started. I was so excited to finally get with him and write that all this music just started coming out of me. I would just, everybody's process is different. I could just sit there and come up with a cool riff. And then I'm like, all right, I like that. First thing I do, of course, is I just grab my phone and just record it, because you know how it is with a musical idea. It can leave quick, and when it's gone, it's gone. So I quickly, just before I put it on in Logic or anything, I just get a basic idea, and then I just start working with it. And then I have a verse and a chorus and a melody, and then I start building the song from there. And then when I get it to the point of where I think this is something, then I record it in Logic on my
Mhm.
computer, throw on just some bass and drums just to inspire. And then once I get just a demo, it really inspires me. Like, this is really sounding good. And then I could really start working with it. Then when I got something decent, I send it to him. He starts working with the vocal melodies, and we go back and forth. And and now obviously when we have a full band, we write sometimes where we jam with the drummer and the bass player and whatnot. But yeah, I'm just really inspired to put out this project and the music that we're creating. Like, when he sends me something back and it has this amazing vocal melody on top, it just inspires me even more. So I'm just really jazzed about this project. And I just know in my heart, and everybody says this, but more
No,
than
they
ever.
don't.
What's that?
No,
No.
no, they don't.
Okay, I thought, but I just kind of know, like, if I could just get this music to a big, large audience, it's gonna take off to some degree. But that's the hardest thing, getting it a lot of people worldwide to hear it. If I could just somehow break through and get one inroad into that, I think it could go somewhere. So that's the goal,
Yeah.
and whatnot. But yeah, but I'm just inspired. Music always inspires me. I could listen, I like a really wide variety of music, like we
Mhm.
talked about,
Yeah.
like prog and hard rock and progress, but I also love jazz, and,
And what's the name of the album?
well, the band is Black Sunday Band, but I don't have a name for the album yet. Probably just
Oh,
Black
okay.
Sunday, yeah,
Yeah.
because we're just
And where'd the
releasing
name
singles.
Black Sunday come from?
Well, we were going through the torturous process of trying to choose a name, and that's a really hard thing. And then I Will is very picky, which is good. And then he just had an idea. He's like, "Hey, I had this idea." He goes, "I never really wanted to have this, but this sounds really good," and I just liked it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we went with it. It just sounds kind of heavy,
Yeah, it
cool.
rolls off the tongue too.
Yeah, yeah, it rolls off the tongue. So
And
yeah, so
it sounds familiar. You
yeah,
have
there was
Black
a movie.
Sabbath.
Right. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
It sounds familiar. There was a movie in the 70s called Black Sunday.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we went with it and people seem to like it. And yeah. But just getting back to
Yeah.
like I was saying, like, I find inspiration in all kinds of music. Progressive jazz, I'm a big Chick Corea fan. I saw them live at the Bottom Line in the 90s with Frank Gambale and Dave Weckl,
Uh-huh.
John Patitucci. And, I love the like hard bop stuff of the 60s. I love vinyl, so I buy vinyl. I
Oh
just
yeah.
love dropping the needle on, and and I always am, excuse me, picking up used stuff, like a lot of hard bop, like Miles Davis and Lee Morgan and Wes Montgomery is one of my favorites, and John Coltrane and all the Thelonious Monk, one of my favorite player, the good
Right.
piano player. So I love all that stuff, and I could sit there and just be inspired from that. So music just inspires me from
Right.
all angles. And then when I start playing guitar, just the mere playing guitar, like, just like, I always have to write original music. Yes, I'll play in cover bands and have fun with that, but original music for me, it's like you could pick up an instrument, anybody can, and play a few notes or chords and do something that no one's ever really come out with
Yeah.
before.
It's funny. I was talking to a lot of the musicians that I've been talking to. I always I look at music. Music is intangible. it doesn't exist in the physical level. We don't just develop our instrument fingers and our motor skills and then our theory knowledge and our ear and all that, but we also develop if we're a songwriter, we connect into what I call the intangible. There are notes floating around us, music all around us. It's in a bounce of a basketball. It's some people walking. There's rhythm and everything. There's music all around us. So I think as artists, we're able to hear something that's intangible and take it and put it in a physical form in a way that can be pleasing to humans to listen to. And to me, that's a gift because you're taking something, like you said, something you just thought up in your head, you're transforming it. And if you have the right musicians and they understand your idea, just like having a conversation, it goes on because you're both relating. You guys connect, and then that song becomes something because everybody's put their voice and their spin on it, and it becomes this thing. And then the audience who hears it, they hear something because you guys are actually speaking and telling a story. They're not just hearing the music, they're hearing the story. So that's a talent in itself, and that's obviously something you found with these guys, with the singer, where you guys, it's a magic, there's that magic touch. That's why I can go in the studio with the guys I have and play live. I couldn't do that with just any musician. It's these guys.
It's the chemistry factor. You have that chemistry that's so important. Yeah. You got to be the right people. Yeah.
Now, if you had a preference at some point, would you prefer being in the studio recording, or do you like playing live?
I love both. I love live playing.
But if you had to choose one.
Oh, that's a tough choice, James. I love recording too, and I love the recording process and the writing process. It's just hard for me to imagine me not being on a stage somewhere holding a guitar and playing. That's just hard to imagine not doing it. But I love all aspects of the recording.
Well, the difference, as you know, between recording and playing live is when you're playing live, you're in the moment.
Yeah.
Whereas recording, you can do redos and
right.
It's a different
get
thing.
all the pre-production work done first.
It's not as exciting as being on the stage when you're just, especially for me, being a jazz musician, because it's mostly improvisation. When I was doing the fusion stuff for many decades, everything was always kind of the same. The kind of prog stuff I would do, it was the same. I got bored because I was playing the same stuff all the time. But with jazz, I like it because I've evolved as a musician to a place where my ideas are coming and going. If I'm in the stage, I'll play stuff that night I'll never play again, and I never played before. And that's the joy of playing live, I think, especially if you have the musicians, you can do that and it doesn't turn into a train wreck.
Right. I love, we're a lot alike because I love improvisation too. And a lot of these casino gigs I get hired to do, I get a lot of improvisation time.
They give you freedom to do that.
Yeah, because they just, they're long 4 or 5 hour gigs. So the guys that hire me, a lot of the singers are what they're like, eat up clock,
exactly. I do that too. Our songs get 7 minutes, 10 minutes.
So it's awesome. I get to really stretch out and so I love the improvisation of it all. So I love it both.
So have you done any touring at all?
Not extensively. Like I've played up and down up the East Coast a bit, but out here I haven't you
haven't had to.
Right. I've maybe made a trip to Northern California or something, but with this band, we're going to get to the point where we're probably going to start doing,
we'll definitely go to Washington and Oregon area. You guys would be huge up there.
Totally. Yeah. We're going to, we'll do the whole Arizona and then Southern California and go up the coast and San Francisco and then Washington and Oregon. And we'll start with that. And we'll see how that goes. It's just even harder now only because the costs have gotten so high. Unless you're like headlining a pretty good sized venue and you're on the undercard, you're not going to make any money, because the cost of fuel and lodging has just got to be so expensive.
Well, even brand names, I have I know musicians talk to, and they're, they're on the charts, number one, number two in the charts and things like that. And they do the cruises and the festivals and all that stuff. They do tours and sometimes they don't even break even
Break even.
because
Yeah.
they got to pay the musicians. The venues pay them a certain amount. This and that, they got to pay, like you said, travel, all that stuff. That's why being a side musician is actually more profitable, the way to go for a lot of musicians, because they're going to get to play with all these named
Right.
people. They're the ones that are not making the money. You're making actually more than them,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. But
Yeah. The touring is a tough piece, but I really like the live playing so much. To go to the other venues all across the
yeah,
West Coast to start would be killer. But again, the tough part with that now is like these promoters or the venues, they want to see, well, okay, you want to play our venue in Northern
fill the
California. What kind of,
seats.
yeah, what kind of audience do you
Yeah,
have here? How many,
yeah.
so it's all about having that audience so
Just
that
like
you,
online, they'll say, how many followers do you have?
right,
There was a
exactly.
guy who posted a video on TikTok, and they say, "Oh, we love your music, but you only have 129 followers. When you have 50,000, we'll
Right,
revisit the idea."
right. That's what it's,
Yeah,
that's a
it's a
standard now.
different
That's,
world. Yeah,
yeah, it's a different world. That's why I said earlier, they really don't sign artists anymore. They sign
yeah,
audiences. And the problem, in my opinion, that's the problem why there's so much empty musical calories and crappy music out there, because and a lot of times these heads of industry people even tell you when they start listing what they want, they start with how many followers you have on Instagram, what's your engagement rate, how fast. Well, what about writing a good song? They don't even
yeah,
talk about the music is now down here, so it really lowers the bar
yeah.
and whatnot.
Well,
So
it's more about, a lot of times it's more about the artist than it is about the music. Everything you see is about the artist did this, you know, they talk about the name over and over, and you hear about all it. You don't really hear about the music, the songs that they sing. That's the thing I always liked about John Mayer. Even though he was huge, you talked about his songs
right,
because he was a songwriter and he wrote great songs. You can
right,
name them off in your head. If I think of certain rappers that are out, which is still big, I don't know why, or certain artists, Taylor Swift. I can't name any of their songs, but I know who they are.
yeah,
See,
yeah,
it's all about, because we live in a celebrity-driven society. We always have actors, the
right,
Kardashians, all that. It's it's gone away from the art and more into that's why I want to do this series, because I want to show these young kids that are playing that there's a whole nother background and story and journey you can take with music. And they're watching you talk about the joy of finding a singer, and you're writing songs, and you're going out and you're performing them, and you're building this brand and all this stuff. That there's joy in that, there's value in that, even if you're not making as much money as somebody sitting in their room just doing riffs, and they're known, Matteo Mancuso or whatever,
right,
he's got all these followers and people watch him, but he's always playing other people's music, Holdsworth songs, this.
right,
He'll do his once in a while, but he's not known for having a band. He's known for playing Holdsworth and ripping on the. That's great, but that's only one aspect of music. There's this whole other thing where you
right,
go through a little suffering. You have to drag your amp in. Your amp doesn't work. Oh shit, what am I going to do? Oh, I forgot
right.
my pick. I got to use this pick that's not. All these little things are, it's like a relationship. You have all this. It's not always good, but
Right.
you love it.
Yeah,
Now, what's
you're doing important work here, James, and you're explaining all the other avenues out there for music and musicians. And a lot, like you said, a lot of people don't know. They
right?
just think, oh, I'm just going to play live, and so all these other balls in the air, and they can all be other different streams and all be other passages and ways that you could stay connected to music while you're building this
Yeah,
brand and this other thing. So I'm glad that you're doing the series, and I'm
yeah.
glad, yeah, to be part of it. Yeah.
So what's the best piece of advice another musician, maybe in your past or even present, has given you that always kind of stuck with you? Is there
Yeah.
anyone? Yeah,
Yeah. There's a few pieces of advice. One is uh, a little bit of piggybacking. So you mentioned before about video cassette tapes, VHS tapes. You know, when you and me were first learning guitar, there was no internet back then. I don't know how you learned, but I learned a lot from reading magazines and books. And I used to rent VCR tapes at our local music store because I couldn't afford to buy them because at that time they were 80, $70. So they would rent instructional tapes.
Yeah.
So I used to go and rent these tapes. And one of the instructional tapes I rented when I was, woodshedding was a guy by the name of Don Mock. You probably know him, jazz guy, right? He died a couple years ago. Anyway, he said something on that tape that always stuck with me. He's like, whatever you do, everybody wants to burn on guitar and be such a great shredder and play killer lead guitar, but he said never neglect your rhythm skills, because he said this. He said your lead guitar skills will only ever be as good as your rhythm skills.
Mm-hmm.
So that always stayed with me, because it's true. You're only solos, aside from when you're improvising, or for the most part, small sections of songs. You really gotta be a good rhythm player. And I see that a lot in my lessons where I have students come to me and I'm like, okay, play over this progression, and they could burn and rip it up. And I'm like, okay, hold the chords down. I want to show you a few things. And they can't even hold the rhythm down. So it's really a big hole in their playing. So don't neglect your rhythm playing. And another, one of my best guitar teachers when I was developing my style, I took a lot of lessons from a guy named Ernie White on the East Coast, incredible guitar player. And he said something once that really stayed with me. He said, when you're going and trying out for bands and you're playing with other people, he said, try to be the weak link in the chain. He said, because that's how you're going to learn. He goes, if you're going on audition, you're always the best player and you're the best, where are you going to go from there? So he's like, when you're playing with other people, which is so important, and it doesn't matter with who, just keep playing, because bands are going to break up. It's inevitable. Keep playing, but be the weaker link in the chain. So that's what I had done throughout my career. I went on a lot of, and I got some gigs that were really above my head. A lot of them I didn't get, and that really helped make me better. I really had to work hard. And so that's two things that have really helped me in my guitar journey and music journey. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I talked about with Gary and other people on the conversations was a lot of times you don't know where you are as a musician. You're just like a boat floating in the ocean, and you don't know if you're here or whatever. If you're John McLaughlin, you're good because you're John McLaughlin.
Right.
So I know that advice really helps, because advice is almost like a validation too, in a way, because somebody's telling you something they know you'll understand, and if you take the advice and use it, it shows that you're taking ownership. But for me, I know that it happened years later with Dean Brown, producer on my Groove and Smooth album, because he was at the top of the food chain, and we drove back and forth to the studio all the time. I'd pick him up and we would talk. And I remember when we finished the album, or we started the album the first day, and he had produced a lot of music, and a lot of them were hobbyists, just people that were, could play guitar, wanted to make some music. So he didn't know me from Adam. I didn't really know who he was. I didn't really listen to him. They showed me on Wikipedia because he was recommended to me, and we met in a hotel lobby, and I told him what I was looking for. And anyway, he called me the night after the first session. He says, James, he goes, I didn't realize you guys were this good. He goes, do you mind if I play on the album? I really like this drummer, is amazing. You guys are really good. And I said, yeah. What am I going to say? No.
Right.
So he played all the rhythm. All I did was play all the melodies.
Right.
And but that was like, when somebody tells you that, it shows you where you're at a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, oh wow, because they're not going to be on something that it's going to embarrass them.
Right. Exactly.
And then 3 months after we finished the album, because every day we would text, because it was still tennis season. We're both into tennis, so we're always like, oh, Alcaraz is. And then one day he goes, hey, James, what were those songs you were playing when I was editing and stuff at the studio? Because I'd sit in the regular big room and just play. I go, oh, there's just some jazz fusion songs, a song I wrote in the 90s, some other stuff. And that's what I've always played. And he goes, man, you should record those. Those are beautiful songs. I go, yeah, I'd love to. And he goes, if you want to record them, man, I'd love to, you know, collaborate with you. And I said, sure. And he goes, well, there's only two guys I could think of that would play this, that would sound good on this stuff. Let me call you tonight. He called me tonight. He goes, yeah, I got Gary Husband and Hadrian Farad. They want to be in the project. And I've been wanting to do a project with Gary for years. And I said, oh, great. You know, so that's how that happened. And again, that was another validation for me that these guys want to play my music, you know, and he wants to work with me. So when you find musicians, the good thing, the reason I'm telling this is that the other musicians out there sitting in their room, you don't know where you are. And you won't
Right.
ever know where you are until you're out playing with other people. And just
Right.
like you said, you went and played with people that were up here a little bit from where you thought, but you somehow you did it. You rose to the occasion
Right.
and that kind of thing, which brings me to another point, practicing. I know a lot of musicians like when they tour a lot, and I talked to Gary about this, they don't have they have their practice routine at home, but when they're on tour, because they're doing a sound check, then they're playing 3 hours at night or whatever, and then they go to the next one and it's over and over. They don't need to have a practice schedule, maybe a warm up. Do you have a certain practice schedule at home that you still do, like certain hours a day?
Not as much as far as any set thing like on Mondays I do this because all my days are so different. But what I do and what I tell people to that you might want to consider is I kind of write I like I have this with me all the time, my appointment books. Without that, I have to write it down or else it's just gone.
Yeah,
So what I do is I write in practice. So if I schedule it, I tend to do it. Even like if I'm going to work out or something, I write workout,
yeah,
practice. So I have to schedule it. So having my binder and my book and then writing it in makes it much more tangible. And then I tend to do it. I don't, I don't really have the flexibility because I got so much going on. I
yeah,
can't
yeah.
say
We're
every
older
month.
now. We're not kids where we can
Yeah,
play 9 hours a day in
right,
our bedroom.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I tend to write it down and a lot of times too, being a teacher and having so many students in different levels, especially advanced student, keeps me sharp. Like
yeah,
I gotta constantly be coming up with lesson plans, and I gotta let me teach this guy some of these arpeggios. Let me refresh this and this and this, and let me refresh a little bit and how to connect. So being a teacher, I get tons of practice time,
right.
reviewing materials and whatnot, and that's why I always like having, even though I make more money online, I like having students that come to the house because it keeps me sharp.
Yeah,
It
yeah, yeah.
keeps me
Because you're
sharp.
on the spot. Now, if what kind of gear are you? Is there a certain gear you record with? Do you record with the same gear that you play live with? And what is your favorite gear? What's your rig right
Yeah,
now? Just kind of tell everybody what kind of
yeah,
strings,
yeah,
what kind of guitar, pedals.
yeah. My rig changes depending on what situation I'm playing with. If I'm playing with a trio at the casino
Say with
versus
Black Sunday, since
yeah,
that's
with
your
Black
baby.
Sunday, that's interesting. I've been a tube amp guy basically my whole life. I love tube amps. I love the sound of tube amps, and I love that live sound through really good speakers and feeling the music and whatnot. And I've been a Mesa Boogie amp guy for a long time. Love Mesa Boogie amps, and I use them in the studio a lot as well as live. But on this project, because it's so new, I was like, I want to do something different. I want to have a little different sound. I don't want it to sound like my stuff in the past. So I'm going to try a different rig. So I actually dove and I said, you know what? I want to build a board that I could take with me on the road because I don't want to be moving around these heavy amps and cabinets all up and down the coast and everything. So I got into the modeling world, which I never wanted to do because it's a deep dive down the rabbit hole. And I always loved the tube amps, but the technology is so good now, I can't tell the difference. So I got a quad cortex. There's like four really the biggest modelers out there today, like the
Axe,
Helix, the Axe Effects, right? The Helix, the Kemper,
Felix.
Head Rush, and the Quad Cortex by Neural DSP. I've been using Neural DSP products. Plugins. They make great plugins. Their plugins for computer recording sound so good, and it's easy. I don't have to mic and amp and get the right sound and isolate. When I need to record something quick, just for demos, just plug into the interface. Bam! It's hit the plug-in, done. So it
Yeah.
makes it convenient. So they came out with a piece of hardware called the Quad Cortex, which is a modeling. So I actually built a board using that. So live, as far as guitars, I love so many different types of guitars. I play Strats, I play Les Pauls, I play Paul Reed Smith. Those are probably my three, but I've used other guitars over the years. The old Carvins, I have a Carvin I really like, but mainly I use Fender Stratocaster, a Gibson, Les Paul, and Paul Reed Smith. I have a good relationship with them. I use a couple different Paul Reed Smiths. But I could, guitar for me is a tool. It's like a painter using a paintbrush.
Mhm.
But I can get all my sounds I need with those. Cover all the bases. But I like you have I love the hollow body sound. I
Yeah.
love that semi hollow body. Like I love 335s. Just for the music I play, it wouldn't be the right sound for me. But I love that. I love that sound. I love your sound. I mean, that's
Yeah.
love that. So guitar wise, I use those. I don't use tons of effects. I've never been a huge effects guy. I've always gotten my distortion from the amp. Now I use like the amp simulator or the modeler. And like I use a little reverb, but I get most of my tone from my fingers. I've been a big proponent of that for a long time, taking me back to like the Stevie Ray Vaughan days. Like people don't realize, like, you get so much of your sound is how you bend the notes and how
Sure.
aggressive you're hitting. Because I'm a very aggressive player, how you're hitting the strings and how you're vibrato, and that's a big part of your tone. And I
Yeah.
always have been a believer, the more strength you have in your fret hand, the more tone you're gonna have, the more you could work the notes. I'm big on working the notes and
Uh,
milking every drop out of them.
so you
So I
have
don't.
calluses on your fingers.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, big time, yeah. Because I use thicker strings, and I used to use 11s, but I've dropped down to 10s. Um,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, but yeah. So I
Well,
really like,
I went from nines,
right,
42 to 9 to the jazz guitar, which I use 53.
53. Yeah,
And that took a toll on my hands. It took me 6 months just to acclimate.
yeah, for
And then when
sure.
I go to play the other guitar, which I'm trying to do because I'm going to be recording two singles, fusion singles that didn't make it on the Soul in Time album. And it's funny when you were talking about tone, the reason I mentioned about the calluses is I remember Dean telling me a story. He was playing in New York at a club, and he played a Strat at the time, I think it was, and they were playing fusion. And George Benson walked in and was sat in the front at a table. And during one of the breaks, they invited him up to play, but he didn't have his guitar with him, so he took the Strat,
Right.
and Dean said he made it sound like a hollow body. It sounded like a Benson guitar because he just did a few things. So, and he has no calluses on his fingers at all because
Interesting.
in those days, they turned the amps up loud and they had to play lighter. So, like you said, you play hard and you have those calluses and that. So like you said, it's all about touch, and you can
Yeah.
have your tone, your sound on any instrument if you're connected to your fingers and your tone,
Yeah.
which is important. But I was going to say, yeah, I'm getting ready. It's hard to play the Ibanez solid body, but I'm getting ready to release two singles in 2026, and I'll have Dennis Chambers on drums and
Awesome.
Ernest Tibbs on bass, who plays with Protocol right now with Simon Phillips.
Killer.
So yeah, so that I'm looking forward to that. Plus, I get to play fusion again. That's what I love. But I took up the contemporary smooth jazz because I could get more work doing corporate
Right.
background music,
Yes.
weddings, all that. Like you said, you have to adjust and create income streams.
Exactly.
And then it turned out I was actually good at writing these kinds of songs. I didn't know that I could write uh, good songs that people wanted. That, and I've gone up to number one on the charts. I just closed this last year at number one on the jazz chart.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and also I was going to say that when I recorded the last Fusion album, Dean told me, he goes, "Yeah, practice when you go into solo. Forget everything you practice." And he goes, "Because you know what? No one's going to hear this album anyway." Which is true because it's fusion. Who listens to
Right.
fusion? but then all of a sudden, boom, I have an award behind me I won, from the album that was on the Grammy, 67th Grammy Awards for Best Contemporary. So you just don't know what,
Just don't know.
like, so with Black Sunday, anything could happen, man.
Anything could happen. And yeah, just to finish out on the
Yeah.
gear. So I'm using a simple rig where I use the quad quartet, the neural DSP, and
Uh-huh.
then Les Pauls and Strats. And then I also use, when I'm not traveling out, if I'm playing local gigs, I have a 212 cabinet, because I could just run to front of house straight out of the modeler. But then I have the sound coming through the monitors, and it's like, it's to me, the guitar through the monitors, it always sounds thinner and
Yeah.
compressed. I like
Skinny.
feeling the air, so having the cabinet behind me and feeling that air, at least for stage volume and energy, means a lot. Now when I go travel, I could just grab the board or throw it in my bag on a plane, and then I have my tone. So it's a matter of convenience. But
Yeah.
but I still love my tube amps, and I still use those too. So
Yeah.
I'm just kind of, again, it's almost like, you know a modern musician today, you have to kind of,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
I know
jam and
some
all that.
musicians that travel with a flash drive and they plug it in the back of the amp, or they plug it in the board, and then all their stuff's there, the modeling
Yeah,
and everything.
yeah, they're
I
making
used
it.
I
Yeah,
used a Roland Blues Cube. Chuck Loeb is a jazz guitar player. He used it. I found it on YouTube, and it sounds amazing. In fact, I've been finding out that these other musicians that I have admired, that I'm interviewing this stuff and talking with, they use it. I'm going, oh my God, how did it sounds so? It's just like a tube amp. It sounds just like a tube amp.
do you use that live or in the studio?
I use it live and studio.
What
Because
does that have,
that's
like a 112 speaker, or
yeah, yeah.
and you
You can
just,
get the 212 or the 112.
right on? And
And the artist series, I think, is the 212. I have the other one. And then they have these things you can screw in the back to give you a certain sound. I just use that. And I always use a little delay, a little
yeah, I love
delay
delay.
and little reverb, but it's like
Right,
makeup, you don't want
right.
to look like you're wearing it. So, but on this last single that's coming out on the 30th, I went as dry as I could without going too dry, because that just doesn't appeal to me. And a lot of the smooth jazz guitar players sound so much R&B sound. They all sound the same to me. I have to actually look to see the name. I always try to have, I know I sound different, and that's what I like. And that's the thing I like about your guitar playing with this kind of music, is you're not doing that typical speed demon stuff.
Right,
I mean, it's been done. Everybody can do it. You can go
right,
on YouTube and watch a million guys do it. When you play, you always kind of start somewhere and go somewhere, and then take us on a little journey, and then it
right.
ends, and then it goes back into the vocals again at the right time.
Yeah, I always try to play for the song, not for
Yeah.
myself. That's how it's all about the song. That's
Yeah.
what that's what we're
But your
concentrating.
phrasing is very, what I'm talking about is
Thank
your
you.
phrasing is, it starts somewhere, it takes you somewhere, peaks, and
Right.
then it goes,
Yeah.
exits nicely.
Yeah, that's what I try to write
Yeah.
in that
It's
way.
like
So
when you watch a play, you want to see it, and then they stand there and everybody go, oh, and then you know. Now, getting towards the end of before we go,
yeah,
I just have a question I ask everyone. I kind of like that artist theater thing where the guy says, what's your favorite cuss word, and you know,
right.
kind of thing. So, if you could do if you could play with any musician, alive or dead, uh, in just one, I know there's probably many. Who would you choose that you could just jam with and play with?
Any musician? You mean another guitar player?
Any kind of musician, a horn player, a singer, anything, live or dead. It could be
Oh,
Michael
wow.
Jackson, it could be Christian,
Yeah, I never thought of
sorry,
that
Christian,
before. Um, would probably be
Van
one of my
Halen.
yeah, one of my influences, Van Halen or Jimi Hendrix. That would be pretty crazy. Or
Yeah,
or John Sykes, or maybe Gary Moore.
yeah,
That would be that would be pretty cool. Yeah.
yeah. So one of them you'd want to jam
Yeah,
with.
just to meet one of those and see,
Jam, play
yeah, and
music.
jam. Like I've
Yeah,
seen, I went to Eddie Van Halen. I've seen Eddie Van Halen live. I've seen him play 5 times. I saw Stevie Ray Vaughan 5 or 6 times live. But you know, as far as meeting and getting up close, that would be
Yeah.
probably one of those guys. Yeah, that'd
Yeah,
be
this is all fantasy. So,
right. Yeah.
and leads to the last question, the second to last. If you could, um, if you say had a profession that was real or not real. I know I asked Gary, and he said he'd want to be a Formula One driver. If you could do something if you weren't doing playing music, what would it be?
If I if I could do
If you
something,
weren't doing what you're doing now in any other profession, what would the profession be that you would want to do?
yeah. Um, uh, maybe being like a being an actor always seemed to be kind of interesting, you know, in Hollywood and taking on some cool roles or like I mean, I kind of like basketball, like being having the talent to play
Yeah,
like a professional basketball. That would be a lot of fun.
yeah.
You know,
So
if
being a
you
professional basketball player
yeah, a
would be,
professional basketball player, that would
there
be
you go.
I don't have that kind of talent.
Well, yeah, that's why I say it could be real or
Yeah,
fantasy. I mean, Gary can't drive a Formula One, but he would
right.
love to be a, you know,
That
a
sounds exciting and dangerous.
Grand Prix, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it now is to all the viewers out there, if you want to tell anybody about any instruments you're associated with or sponsored with or gigs coming up, um, this will probably air. The gig will probably happen before this airs, but
Yeah.
the album when it might be coming out,
Yeah.
sponsorships, anything like that that you want
Yeah.
people to know about where they can find you for lessons, all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, the my main project now, the original band is Black Sunday, and you could check that out by going to blacksundayband.com and you could listen to some music, and then we have all our social links there, and you could you know, find out about all our live shows. We just played House of Blues, and we'll have a bunch of other stuff booked, so you could get all that on the website. As far as guitar, if you're interested in my lessons online, it's nextlevelguitar.com. If you're interested in my YouTube channels, it's Epic Guitar Instruction for songs and guitar instruction. You just go to Rock on Good People. Through the video description under every video, I have my email address and links to everything. You can get to my courses. My email, you can always reach me at the next level, the next level guitar at yahoo.com. I teach privately, both if you're in San Diego, but I also teach via video, via Zoom, anywhere in the world. So I have students, you know, all over the world that sign up for lessons, and I have some open slots now. So if you're interested, just reach out and we could talk about it. Yeah, and if you have questions, you know, like I said, I'm available. I get back to people pretty quick. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So I'm going to put all that underneath. They can click on it
perfect.
in the description on YouTube, and
Yeah,
I'll probably have the interview to those that are watching. It'll be posted today, but it will be for members only that can actually watch it today if they want to. $1.99 basically they could watch it, and
you're going to do
uh,
all the editing today.
oh yeah, I do all. I got everything ready. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah. And then because it's also a plug for me to get subscribers and members. So
Sure.
if those that want to watch your interview, they can go ahead and just become a member, even just to watch the interview, and then cancel their membership. Doesn't matter. But it will probably air sometime in March
Okay.
or
Well,
April.
make sure you let me know when it's going
Of
to air because
course.
then I could
Oh
put it
yeah,
on
yeah, I got a whole
my
system.
socials.
I let everybody know. I was going to release one every other week,
Hmm.
um, but I got so much now. What I'm doing is I have like a 6.5, 7, 7.5, because now I'm putting the extra ones. I have Victor Wooten's probably going to be on probably in April. Uh,
Awesome.
basis. So I have a lot, and I'm talking to other people, maybe Mike Stern and Andy Timmons.
Andy
Um,
Timmons, I met him a few times. Super nice guy.
yeah,
Really
and
good
then
guy.
maybe Jean-Luc Ponty, maybe John McLaughlin. So
Wow.
there's it's going to fill out the year. I didn't think I would be something that would take off, but it did. So I'm just going to go with it. You know,
Great.
yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's
Of
fun.
course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm learning a lot. And now I have a couple of musicians, Reza Khan, a guitarist, who I'm going to probably collaborate with a project, and then Brendan Rothwell, really great bass player in art in Canada, Ontario, Canada. So it's been a good tool for me. It's turned out in that way too. And then I get to meet and learn about you. I didn't know a lot of this stuff about you, so it's good to
Yeah.
know. Then maybe we'll meet sometime out at one of your shows, or
Yeah.
we have to cross paths, in the hallway. Hey,
Yeah. You have any live things coming up?
I don't really do. I haven't done many public shows in the last couple of years. I do mostly corporate, private,
Right. Yeah.
because that's where the money is.
Where the money is. Yeah.
Yeah, and we did a show at the Aurora um, winery up in Temecula, and I mean, it was 7 grand. So the guys each made, a grand and stuff for 3 hours. They're not all like that. That was a high paying one, but the
Right.
money's great. I mean, I'll go play the Roxy for free and pay the other guys out of pocket if I just want to go jam,
Sure.
because I can't jam at corporate gigs
Yeah.
and weddings. You're just background music.
Right.
But and then, like you said, I have to relearn all the songs because I'm getting ready to do that, because otherwise I'm working on other stuff, and
Right.
that's the music life.
That's
So
it.
again, I really appreciate you taking the time,
Thanks for
and
having me. I appreciate it,
yeah,
and continue with your good work. This important
yeah,
stuff you're doing. Thank you.
yeah. All right, all right. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.